Guys, it's our last chapter of Hank. I can't believe it. Let's see what happens. The end ends happily after all. Isn't it funny how Hank always gets out of everything he gets himself into? He must be pretty clever. The dog catcher must have been pretty unhappy when he pulled up to the dog pens and found his old pal Ralph just sitting. As I dashed off across the pasture, I heard him squall and beller. Then he jumped into his pickup, spun the tires, and came after me. I had supposed he would follow the road, see, and that would give him a little advantage and head start. Nope, he came right behind me and off went across the pasture. I ducked under a barbed wire fence and thought it would slow him down since he would have to hunt for a gate. Nope. He built a new gate. Just by George, ran it and drove right through that fence. Then I came to a draw that ran through the pasture. It was kind of steep and on the sides and bumpy in the middle, and I figured that would slow him down. Nope. He near tore the axles off that pickup truck, but he made it through and kept on coming. And then he started coming towards me faster and faster. He drove with his hand out the window, yelling at me. It seems a little radical, him right on the outskirts of town acting like this, until you stop and remember that he still thought I had hydrophobia, and then it still seems radical. It appeared to me that my best lick was to get over to the highway. Surely if I got around cars and people, that dog catcher would hold his fire. Then all I would have to do is worry about would be him running over me with that pickup truck. So I changed courses and headed west and struck the highway right in front of Waterhole 83, the place where Loper and Slim brought their soda pop and lunch. I'd been there a time or two. Sure enough, once I got around the highway, Jimmy Joe had to put everything away. Put all that crazy away. I dashed across a step or two ahead of a semi-truck and made a run for the water hole. I went around the backside just as Jimmy Joe roared into the parking lot. He screeched his tires and followed. My plan at this point was to run around the water hole until Jimmy Joe ran out of gas. But when I came around the south side, I saw a familiar faded red pickup truck out front. Just as Slim opened his door and touched the ground with a booted spur, or a spurred boot, I guess I should say, I divided in and hit the floorboard. What? Where? Good grief! It's you again? There wasn't a great deal of warmth in Slim's... Oh, there's a picture. In Slim's statement. Good grief, it's you again. Sort of recognized the basic facts of the situation, but was a long distance, emotionally speaking, from, by golly, Hank, it's great to see you again. But of course, you have to remember that I had left the ranch under the shadow of controversy, so to speak. Remember, he had stolen the steaks off the counter. Well, I whopped my tail on the floorboard and gave him one of my most pitiful looks. I couldn't tell if it was working or not, and just then the dog catcher came roaring through the parking lot and screeched to a halt. I made my best attempt to melt into the floor mat. I was by George hugging the floor. Say, Jimmy Joe yelled, you see a sorry-looking dog go running through here? Slim shot me a glance, slammed the door, and walked over to the other pickup truck. Yep. Where'd he go? Slim leaned his elbow on the pickup and pointed off to the north. See that milk truck there that says dairy? Right, yeah, okay, thanks. I'll run him down. And he roared off after the milk truck. Slim went into the watering hole and came out with a sack of sunflower seeds. He got in and looked out at me. I didn't lie to him. He asked if I'd seen a sorry-looking dog, and I said yes. I didn't say you were in that milk truck. Didn't even mean to suggest it. He just jumped to conclusions right away. He gave me a wink, and we headed south toward the ranch. After we'd gone for a few miles, I worked up the courage to sit in the seat, and let the wind blow across my ears. I always did enjoy that. So, Do you think he might have liked him a little bit? Because why would he have kind of lied to the dog catcher that he wasn't in his truck? So he protected him, so he might like him a little bit. There they are. When we cross the cattle guard, that puts us back on the ranch. Slim pushed his hat back on his head and looked at me and sighed. Hank, Sally Mae's gonna scalp me when she finds out I brought you back here. In fact, he slammed on the brakes and opened the door. Why don't you walk into headquarters alone? I've gotten enough trouble without being associated with you. You're a lousy record. Lousy record? I couldn't believe my ears. What about all those long nights on patrol? All the years? Oh well. I jumped out into the road. Slim didn't drive off right away, but sat there looking at me. He even grinned. Hank, I'm kind of glad you're back, and I'd be darned if I can find a reason for it. You're as dumb as any dog I've ever met, and you caused more trouble around here than you're worth. All at once, he started laughing. Broke into the house and ate a T-bone steak right off that table, you sorry devil. We should have shot you while we were mad, he shook his head. See you at the house, old pup. So he just can't believe the stuff that Hank gets himself into. And he drove away. Well, what can you say about that kind of welcome home? On the one hand, I think Slim meant every word he said. On the other hand, his words weren't entirely flattering. So there you are. He let me out at the country road, just north and west of the house, right there by Spook Canyon, where the road runs through the horse pasture. I started to the house and ran into the horses. Must have been 12 of them right in a bunch. I was feeling pretty good. I mean, who wouldn't? I had survived the case of a soap hydrophobia. I had escaped from a cell of death, and I had smuggled my bad self out of town just one step ahead of that catcher, and I'm home again. Shucks, it was a great day. I was full of vinegar and oil and the other spices of life. I wanted to run and play and rejoice, and just by George tell everybody that it was great to be alive and home. So I marched up to the horses, thought it might be fun to put on a little demonstration of cowdog skills, round them up into a bunch, head them down toward the corrals, stop them, lose them, hurt them. In other words, a little practice run, just for the pure fun of it. All right, you crowbaits, the chief executive is back on the ranch. Form up into a group and move out to the corrals and stand by for further orders. They formed up into a group. All right, but they went in the wrong direction. Instead of heading down toward the corrals, they came running towards me. I retreated a couple of steps and they kept on coming. I broke into a run and they kept coming. I ran all the way to the corral with those horses right on my tail, kicking and bucking and snorting, which just goes to show that we cowdogs have many tricks in our bags. Oftentimes, the best way to move horses into a corral is to make them think you want to drive them. See? Then let them drive you. So, that was not his plan, but he's always turning it around to make it seem like it's his idea. We call this reverse psychology, and we use it a lot, especially in horses, because they're very ornery and stubborn and willful, also dangerous. And I never did get much pleasure out of messing with a bunch of horses. But it was still a great day. So good that even horses couldn't mess it up. I marched through the corrals, noticed there were a couple of steers in the sick pen, so I made my rounds there. Got them up on their feet, stirred them, checked their noses and eyes and other technical medical stuff that most ordinary readers wouldn't understand. Well, just for an example, I had a steer once that had eardrupus, red eye stenosis, and dry nose rhosis. Handling heavy technical terms is something a good cowdog does every day. But as I say, we didn't expect this ordinary reader. I think I've already covered this anyhow. After I'd made my hospital rounds, I went padding through the corrals, feeling like a million, when all of a sudden I saw something up ahead that caught my eye. There was a stock tank up ahead, see? A stock tank is just like a pond. Right there in the fence line between the alley and the side lot, Pete and Barncat were perched up on the edge of the tank. all bunched up in such a way that he had all four paws resting on a very small ledge. That's something a cat can do. It's a balancing trick that doesn't require any brains. His tail was high in the air, flickering back and forth in a slow rhythm. He was looking into the water and, get this, talking to somebody. That's right. Well, naturally, I had to postpone his daily whooping so I could listen. Oh, you're so handsome. My heavens, my stars, my goodness, my gracious, my gravy, my gosh, you're the best looking cat around. I'm inclined to think that. I'm in love with you, dear. Can you see? Can you hear? My heart beating and pounding and thumping and sounding? This incredible love I feel for myself, I can hardly explain it. It hurts like a bayonet. This incredible love that I feel for myself, it's as gold as a carrot. I'm not sure I can bear it. This incredible love that I feel for myself, I see in reflections in every direction. The incredible love that I feel for myself. Dear cat, you're so handsome. You're worth a king's ransom. Oh, Pete, I'm in love with you. So, when you look in water, you can obviously see your reflection. So, who was he talking to? If you recall, I had spent several hours on patrol in the alleys of Twitchell, Texas. But in all the time, I hadn't encountered garbage to compare with this. But it confirmed what I had always said about cats. They may not be the smartest animals in the world, but they are the dumbest animals in the world. Well, Petey Pie was so busy saying love poems to himself that he didn't hear me sneaking up behind him. And moments later, I enjoyed one of the greatest honors of my career. While Pete was poised on the edge of the tank, looking at his reflection in the water, I slipped up behind him, slapped him across the backside with a paw, and sent him flying into that stock tank. And you know, Pete hates water worse than anything. It was a delicious moment for me, watching him crawl out wet while at the same time remembering the trouble he had with me. Look at Pete's face. The trouble he had caused with me, that fraud about the end of the world. There you go, cat. Just a little reminder that the head of range security is back. Take note and beware. I left the cat sputtering and spitting and went on through the corrals, through the front lot, past the saddle shed, and on toward the gas tanks. There in the shade of the big Chinese elms, I saw Drover. He was crouched low to the ground, stalking a cricket. He heard me coming and looked up. Oh boy, Hank's back! He started jumping up and down. Goodness, I'm glad to see you. The nights were awful scary while you were gone. Pretty bad, huh? Just awful. The first night you were gone, the coons broke into the feed barn, and the second night a coyote came right up to the house and howled Hank and called me nasty names. Did what? What did you do? Oh, Drover looked up at the sky. I barked at him. From the machine shed, I barked at him once or twice. I intended to bark at him once or twice. Maybe I didn't bark at all, but my bad leg was giving me trouble, Hank, and... I've got the picture, son. In other words, while I was gone, things went to pot, rot, rack, and ruin. Well, they sure went to pot and rack, and maybe to rot and ruin, too. I guess you're right, Hank. Just as I suspected. Well, Drover, there's an important lesson about life to be learned from all of this. His eyes widened and he waited for the lesson. It was on the tip of my tongue just a second ago. I paced back and forth, probing my memory, and it was very, very important. I probed deeper. But at the moment, I can't remember what it was. Goodness, that's too bad. But we can take comfort in knowing there are important lessons to be learned. And in the meantime, let's get some sleep. Because Drover? I glanced over both shoulders and dropped my voice to a whisper. Tonight will be another night. The evil forces will rise again from the ground, and we will be there to oppose them. So, that's the end. How did Hank fix his problem? He had a lot of problems, but how did he fix the problem of getting back to the ranch and not having to go to Austin? So do you think he got lucky, or do you think he's just that good? What do you think? So that's it for Hank. If you want to order, the fourth book is called Murder in the Middle Pasture. If you would like to order number 4 and read it on your own, I think I got this on Amazon for maybe $6.99 or $4.99, one of those. So if you want to order number 4, but we are starting a new series on Wednesday. So we'll pick up with that. All right, guys, have a good one.